welcome on Cal Quantrill, starting pitcher for the Cleveland Guardians, and some may call you the white whale of just baseball, as I have been personally following your career since you were at Stanford and basically tailed all your starts on the money line since you joined Cleveland, and now we finally have a chance to sit down and talk about your career. Cal, how you doing, man? Welcome to the Just Baseball Show.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me. It's like you said, it's a long time coming. It's this meeting has been recommended by many, and I'm excited to shoot the shit about baseball. It'll be good.
Definitely. And first, I want to tell you about what has been my fascination kind of with your career. So back in 2014, it was kind of like my first chance kind of watching college baseball closely. Like I always turned on a game, every now and again, but really started following your career at Stanford because I'm personally from Santa Barbara, California, and Stanford was one of my favorite teams to watch. I know Tommy Edman was on that team. And so I just started following your career because I thought you were a really good pitcher. And then when you were on the Padres, then you got traded to Cleveland. I started just dabbling in some of your starts because I always felt that the books undervalued you. So it became a trend, right? It just became a consistent thing. I would either be on an under, I would be on first five, or I'd be on the Cleveland Guardians money line. And throughout the time, you were the most profitable person I have ever bet on anything in my entire life. And then, especially this season, because it really started last season too, but this season, every fifth day, it's Cal Day. And every single time you would deliver. So I personally have to thank you from the bottom of my heart. You're the reason the lights are on, Cal. You're the reason the lights are on.
No, that's good. I'm happy, man. You know what? I don't hear a lot of people betting on, or you know what? I'm not going to lie to you. I don't really know much about gambling on baseball, but I was forwarded your tweets so many times that at this point I'm confident that we have a good working relationship here. So
probably the best working relationship in history of making money.
That's right. I won't take that personally over here. That's fine. It's your co-host just sitting right here, partner. Yeah, it's fine. I get it. I get it. I mean, Peter's had a really nice steak the other night, and that was mostly funded, I think, by Guardians money line every time you're at home. But I also wanted to chime in real quick and just also we want to congratulate you on an unbelievable year. I mean, to see where things have gone, and we'll get into it and the details of it, but to be pitching, I know that's one of the questions we'll get to, in the postseason on the big stage and one of the biggest stages in baseball. What a year, man. And I'm excited to get into that, but just wanted to chime in and congratulate you on that as well.
No, I appreciate it. It was a fun year, man. That was a special team we were part of. The cool part is everyone's coming back. So
yeah.
And when we talked to Sandlin too, he was a big proponent of how young you guys are, that it's not like this was the window. It's kind of the window opening. And we're going to talk about, the Guardians. We're going to talk about this year, but I kind of want to start at the very beginning. You're from Port Hope, Ontario in Canada, and you had the opportunity to win like a silver medal for the 18U Team Canada team in Korea. And you played in 2 world championships. But what I found from researching is that you were also a really, really good hockey player. I'm just curious, like, when did you start to take the moment where baseball was going to be your calling instead of hockey, because you were a beast at both?
It was, so I'll stand by this. I still prefer hockey to baseball. I just wasn't as good at it. I played all the way through high school. I was real good when I was, like that 13, 14 age. There comes a stage, hockey, especially in Canada, where it's almost earlier than baseball. Like guys it's not necessarily signing professionally, but they're leaving home. They're boarding in places. They're playing in like really, really high level hockey at 15, 16 years old. So that line, that 15-year-old line, I'm not going to lie to you, it just became clear that there were other guys that were better than me. Baseball was probably my calling. I was getting taller and skinnier, and these guys were getting more jacked and faster. And I was like, oh, this is feeling like there's a direction I'm supposed to go. So I still love it. I still watch it all the time. The Leafs are my team. It's pretty cool. I was telling someone the other day, it's like everyone wants to like collect baseball autographs and stuff. I'm off that. I'm all for the hockey autographs. Anytime I have a chance, if I'm in a city and the team's playing, like I got to meet Cole Sillinger this year, got a McKinnon autograph, got a Mitch Marner autograph. Like that's my thing right there. I'm all in on that. But unfortunately, there was no hockey wasn't in the cards for me professionally, but that's all right.
So kind of speaking to that, because as we know in Canada, hockey is king in a lot of ways. And that's the sport that seems to dominate, that region. But there's a lot of really talented baseball players that have come out there. And it seems like the pipeline is just continuing. Well, we saw several guys drafted recently. And I know you could speak to a lot of guys that you probably played with in that area. What can you speak to on just baseball in Canada? And do you see it growing in that regard? Do you see more players like yourself maybe opting to go the baseball route and seeing success with that and kind of leading the way for other Canadians who may, start to dabble in the sport and be multi-sport athletes? Because that is becoming increasingly popular and recommended as well anyways, just to play multiple sports.
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing I would hit on is 100%. I think multi-sport athlete, I think it's the way to grow. I think that there's way too much specialization going on in 10 and 11-year-olds. You don't even know if you like the sport at 10.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. You can't be playing a sport all year long. There's so much more to it, right? Becoming a good teammate, learning to be a good presence in the locker room, like learning how to get along with different people. If you just are playing one sport and training in one sport all year long, I mean, I'm just not even sure that you're sure you love that. But to the Baseball Canada thing, I like to point out sometimes that, it's not really like a surprise or a new thing that there's good baseball players coming out of Canada. I like to think that I'm the second or third wave of players. If you go back, like Larry Walker, Jason Bay, like Fergie Jenkins, if you go, like there's real players that like kind of established our presence in the sport and kind of allowed us to grow. Like players like I was just talking about, Joey Votto, Justin Morneau, kind of really did well, gave back to Baseball Canada, both time and money. And that junior national team grew because of it. And then there was opportunity for the best young players in Canada, 15, 16, 17 years old, to play on this 18U team and then go overseas. I was 15 playing in Colombia against just, the best that there were at the time. I think I was playing I was pitching, I was like 86, 87 mile an hour with a bad changeup going up against Joey Gallo and Addison Russell. And it was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. But that kind of exposure is allowing more and more Canadian baseball players to kind of take it to the next level. And you're seeing, Mike Soroka, the Naylor brothers. There's a third Naylor brother that's coming that everyone thinks might be the best of all three, which is crazy given how good the first two are. Matt Brash in Seattle. And there's some really, really talented players, and I think we owe it a lot to that group that came before us. And in return, what we're trying to do is kind of something similar, grow it even bigger. We don't want to be an afterthought when it comes to the WBC, or we don't want it to be a surprise that we win a silver medal in Korea. We want it to be, kind of the standard, and I think we can do that. Obviously, there's fewer players than there is in the States or the Dominican or some of these big baseball countries, but I think the talent's really good, and if we can collect them all and put them on a team, and you can do some special stuff.
So every fifth day, I would post a picture of your face on Twitter, letting people know that it was Cal Day. But another guy on the Guardians who has saved me a number of times, and you just mentioned him, another Canadian-born player from Ontario is Josh Naylor, who again is coming off that incredible year for the Guardians. But you've played with this guy now, it feels like your whole life. You were included in the same trade from the Padres. I assume that you guys might have played high school baseball in Ontario. Is he as wild and as passionate and as crazy off the field as he is on the field?
So I've played with Naylor since I was 16 or 17, and he was 15. Same team. Whole way up. He was only with the Marlins for a year before we joined forces again in San Diego. We're here. I have played with that kid so long. I'll tell you a funny story. So I was on the national team because I'm a couple years older than Josh. And we were doing this like prep game somewhere in Toronto. It was almost like a scout game. It was like the current players on Team Canada versus the best young players attempting to make Team Canada or to get the invite to the next trip we were going on. I think we were going to the Dominican. And I always tell Naylor this, even though it's completely untrue. I'm like punching tickets. I'm nasty. I'm throwing so hard compared to most of the guys at this scout showcase thing. And then this Josh Naylor gets up there, and he's like 2 years younger than me. I don't know anything about him. I mean, he doesn't look like particularly intimidating at the time. And he hits a line drive 250 miles an hour, almost takes off my forehead. And this is after like I've like punched all these tickets. And like immediately, the second this scout game is over, the baseball Canada coach is walking up. Yeah, we're going to have you come along with us to the next trip. So I've always told him that I started his career. Like I threw the cookie there. I got you on the team. Meanwhile, he's just unbelievable. His bat to ball, I think it flies under the radar. Josh is one of the most athletic guys on our team. He, like, in high school, he was like 90-92 from the left side off the bump. Like, he really is a pretty special talent. I think he just does it kind of unique. Like, he doesn't look like it doesn't look like a Byron Buxton or a Trey Turner. So people are kind of like, he flies under the radar. Like, he's stolen bases. Like, you know, before he broke his leg and even after, he's pretty fast. Yes, he is that passionate. Like, baseball is everything. His team is everything. I always like to say, like it or don't like it, some of the things he do on the field, it is genuine. It's authentic. He's not making it up for likes, for views, nothing. He is just fully invested in the game that he's playing. And I think as a teammate, you can appreciate that.
We talk about appreciating, you know, the passion of your teammates. And again, we had Nick Sandlin on, and just he seemed to echo a lot of the same ideas of, it just seems like it's a very close group here. And as we've talked about, you know, just before we hit record, it's a group that's going to be together for a long time. And you guys have a young core that is really exciting. Can you speak a little bit to just the clubhouse side of things? Because I think we've seen, and talking to every big leaguer that we have so far, the commonality is, of course, you have all your metrics, you have all of the statistics that do really help paint a picture of what is a good team and what is a bad team. But when it comes to winning in the toughest of spots, it seems like it's the things that don't really show up statistically. And it seems like you guys really excelled in that department. And it seems like it's a really good group. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah. So, you know, I'm not a GM. I'm not willing to like put a number on what analytics percentage that's analytics is important versus, you know, team camaraderie, personality. But I'll say this, like, in the last 10 years, there's been this massive wave of, you know, advanced statistics, analytics, thinking about baseball, trying to predict the future, you know, to a better degree. Well, the thing is, you know, 10 years ago, there probably was like room to make big gains on other teams if you were better at that. Well, now it's not really. Everyone knows about this. All 30 teams are very aware that, you know, these are important metrics that we need to study and become better at guessing the future. So that, like, competitive advantage that you may have had 10 years ago, 5 years ago, is thinning. You know, it's not like the Astros are just infinitely better at you know, at drafting or at you know, at guessing that, or signing a free agent that they believe is going to outperform their previous metrics. So now it's like, okay, well, what's the next competitive advantage? And I would argue that maybe it is more on the, like, the subjective side, or the personality, the team camaraderie. It's a long time to spend in a locker room together. You know, you're talking 200 to 240 days straight. If it doesn't work, you have to believe that that's going to have a negative effect on people's performance, their output. So if you're looking at it like extremely just mechanically, it's like, I want to make sure that everything's running smoothly so that I'm getting 100% output. If I'm not getting 100% output, all that work I did on the advanced analytics doesn't matter. Like, because I'm projecting that 100% output. I'm projecting that, you know, Cal's going to do this, this, and this. But, you know, if it's a horrible locker room, I don't want to be there. Training becomes hard. The coaches are rough. Maybe you're only getting 85% of what you thought you were going to get. And now that, you know, that's that smart sign, that thing that you did, that money you saved, doesn't mean anything. So I do think teams are putting more effort into the human being side of things. And I think Cleveland's done a great job. Some of it's because we're all, you know, 20 to 26 years old. There's like a lot of shared experiences, whether we played each other in college, came up through the system together, like pretty easy to get along, similar points in all of our lives. Some of it I think too is just like a collection of good people. I can speak to, like, my teammates off the field are people I would still like to spend time with. I think if you're really honest, there's not a lot of teams that would say that about every player on that team. And it starts for us with, like, with both sides of the ball. Like, you know, Jose Ramirez kind of leading the charge, you know, offensively, defensively. You know, Shane's been around for a long time, and Tristan came up to the same. Savali, Plesac, like, all these guys have grown together and kind of had, you know, some of them, and I can't speak to very many of them. Didn't come up in the organization, but, you know, you have to imagine some of the weeds were kind of picked as these guys came up. And, you know, it makes a huge difference. Like, I can't put a win total on it, but there's something there.
Yeah, there has to be something there. And just to keep on that same track of the numbers, I mean, you're a Stanford guy. You're obviously incredibly intelligent. Obviously, I mean, maybe not obviously, but I don't think that you're looking at your FIP or your xERA and putting a ton of stock into that. But there are obvious numbers that, you know, the Guardians use and that you probably pay more attention to. Maybe it's in your pitch mix. Maybe it's, you know, different types of velocity with different pitches. Like, I assume you're not looking at the xFIP, but I assume you're looking at some specific numbers and studying those in order to get better. Can you give our audience some insight into some of those numbers that maybe after a start you're looking at first to see how you can improve?
Yeah. So I never want to take away like from the value of these advanced stats. I do think they're good tools to attempt to guess future output to a certain extent. XFIP and WAR and all these numbers, they will tell a story eventually. But one thing that you can never forget about is what's actually happening on the field. Like, what are you watching? Like, there's a difference between, like, if you can't see the difference between a guy with, they both have the same FIP, but for some reason at the end of the year, one guy has 180 innings and one guy has 120 innings. Like, you still have to, these old metrics like ERA and innings and win losses, like, it's not that they're stupid. It's just that sometimes they're not great at projecting, you know, over the course of, you know, maybe 5 years. What they do tell you, though, over the course of a season, I'm telling you right now, 162 games, if a guy hits 310, he's a good hitter. You don't get lucky for 162 games. So it's just, you got to be really careful. Like, we all want to use these numbers and say that, you know, this kid who had 5 innings last year but struck out 14 guys. Well, does that mean he's projected to strike out 400 and whatever guys next year? Like, wow. It's not quite as, you know, XY straight line as people think. And to come back to the personality, I think that does play a part in it. So it's always fun for me to talk about it because I don't have to lie. I know that all those advanced numbers think that I will fail, and I will continue to prove them wrong. Because for me, it's just about, like, I will find a way to win. Like, I'm going to win. I want to win. I don't like losing very much. So I'll add a pitch. I'll take away a pitch. I'll just be meaner than the guy I'm facing. I don't know. Like, I'll do something, but I don't want to lose for an extended period of time. So I would hope that over the course of time, my advanced metrics would get better because I'm improving. But regardless, I still believe I could find a way to win. So I don't know, you know, I really am on board with these numbers. I think they do tell a story and they're important in terms of, you know, projecting the growth of young players. But I think the really good teams haven't lost sight of some of the other ways we can measure players and finding value where other teams just, you know, aren't willing to test it out. And in a lot of ways, I think that's kind of how my career went, right? I went to the bullpen, and then I come over here and I'm given a chance. And, you know, maybe there were some features that guys didn't like, but, you know, over the course of 2 years, all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, maybe we should keep this guy around. So I don't know. I'm a little biased because I'm in it, but in terms of, like, after a game, no, I don't care what my xFIP or my FIP is. If I went 6 innings with 0 runs, I don't give a shit. They could hit every single ball 145 miles an hour. As long as it went towards somebody and I won, we win, game over. You can talk all day and night about how bad I am, but if I finish the year with 20 wins, it's like, all right, like, congrats.
Aram,
thank you.
This is why I am a ride or die Cal Quantrill guy till the end. That was poetry, Cal.
Yeah,
that was baseball poetry.
Yeah.
Aram, ask your next question. That was amazing.
I'll wear this one because it's a perfect segue here. So when Peter was going really deep down the Cal Quantrill, like, I'm hearing about your name every single week. You have to imagine that, you know, Peter is one of my closest friends. I was so annoyed. I was just like, Peter, if you bring up Cal Quantrill on this podcast one more time, I'm going to lose my mind.
Every fifth.
It got to the point too where I was like, looking at the expected stats, I'm not watching the starts. I'll be honest, I wasn't watching early on, and I'm like, Peter, this is not going to last, like, whatever. And he's like, it's going to keep lasting. It's going to keep lasting. It's going to keep lasting. And I just wanted it to end. I'll be honest. Not because of you. I'm just going to be honest here. I just didn't want to hear Peter talk anymore. Now that I know you,
it could be Cal Quantrill. It could be any other pitcher, but it was me telling Aram, this is the greatest pitcher alive.
Correct.
Aram looks at Aram looks at the xERA and says, no shot.
No shot.
I believed.
So we go back and forth. I couldn't take it anymore. And I said, okay, if he has a sub 3.5 ERA, I'll get a tattoo. And what did your ERA finish at?
Sub 3.5.
It did. So we'll wrap up the podcast. I'll let you decide on. It's going to be small because my mom will cry if she sees it. But we will work something out there. It's going to be very small. So congratulations on a great year.
I love that.
And thanks for that. And I'm an asshole and I'll wear it. But you know what I really do like on the balancing of the analytics and the player side, and something that I continue to try to get better at, because I pride myself on a lot of the prospect analysis I do and research and all of those things, is I want to learn on the guys that slip through the cracks, the areas where I missed. And this is a perfect example of that, because I think a lot of the metrics that we look at, they weigh certain things differently. And if you're able to lean into your strengths, sometimes it doesn't, pick up on those strengths. And something that stuck out to me was you might not get the whiff rates. And you talked about that in a Fangraphs piece that I thought was really insightful, that Peter actually sent to me, of course. And the one thing that stands out to me is the chase rates are really high, though. So despite not getting a lot of whiff, you do get a lot of chase, and it's above average there. And I think part of that's because you have 4 pitches that seem to move in opposite directions. How much are you trying to get guys to chase, and what's kind of your mentality on the mound? Because I know there's examples of Tyler Glass now who sometimes would just aim down the middle, knowing that naturally it would, move to the corners. For you, you were able to have those pitches moving in 4 different directions. You're able to get a lot of weak contact. Average exit velo was lower than most, and a high chase rate, despite not a lot of whiff. Usually those two things go hand in hand. Can you speak to how you're able to get guys to expand the zone against you a little bit, despite not racking up whiffs with, the top guys in the league?
Yeah. You know what? I think like pitching for me is like, you're playing this game of chess, right? Like Tyler Glasnow is filthy, like utterly filthy.
Disgusting.
If I had what he was offering, I would throw everything down the middle and just know that it's all going to move away and they can't hit it. But you have to like know what your talents are and what your strengths are. So for me, like if I'm facing a tough matchup, like I never want it to sound like I'm not using the analytics. Like I'm well aware of like what I'm doing well, what I'm doing poorly, who sees me well, who doesn't. But like an example of like an at bat, or like how I would think would be, so let's say we're playing the White Sox and I got a guy on third with 2 outs and Yoan Moncada. Okay. Like regardless of who hits after him, if it's a right-handed hitter, right? If I know that a righty's coming up, whether it be, even if it's a Brave, like one of the best players of our generation, like it's about playing the game sometimes. It's about knowing that, I'm going to throw basically nothing that Moncada could do anything with other than get out. And if he walks, he walks. Like, I don't care. Have first base. I will take my chances, even if it's against Jose, knowing that my stuff is going to play better against him. And it's like playing these games, whereas sometimes analytics would tell you, well, Cal, your cutter up into lefties, the expected slug on it is, 190. You should just throw that over and over and over again. Okay, well, fine. But if I miss my spot by 4 inches, the expected slug is 1,000. Like he's going to smash this ball. So it's like, it's knowing the numbers, but knowing that you're not a computer. If I could just throw the ball exactly where I wanted every single time with my highest metric rate of that pitch, then yeah, sure. It'd be like playing MLB The Show, but it's not MLB The Show. It's the real world. And I know that a guy like Moncada clearly sees me well, and I can only throw that pitch so many times in a row. And there's like the room for error is small. Okay, screw it. We're going to pitch around him a little bit, not horribly, not going to intentionally walk him, but, make him swing at my pitch. If he goes to first, I'll take my chances that they don't hit a 3-run home run. Now, I think some guys have gotten away from that, and it's no fault. Like if I had Tristan McKenzie's fastball, or if I had Glasnow's fastball, or I had Bieber's curveball, maybe I would just throw it like 100 times in a row and be like, what? Like I don't think that they can hit it, but I know what I have, and I know that like there's games I can play. If we're playing against a good team, and I just know that if I break the 3-hole hitter's bat early in the game, and he's just like so anti me throwing out his hands anymore, I might walk the 2-hole hitter just so I can face the 3-hole hitter. Like I'm playing the game because I know in the end, my only job as a starting pitcher is to give my team a chance to win. It doesn't, like whether I go 5 or 8, like you want to go longer, but like the goal is if I get 18 outs, if I get 21 outs and we have the lead with the pen that we have, like I did my job. And my goal is to do my job every time. I never lose sight of what my job is. I don't necessarily always try and throw a no-hitter. I'm not out there trying to punch every ticket. I'm trying to punch tickets when I need to punch tickets. Second and third, one out with a guy that I can punch a ticket on. Yeah, I'll bring out the nasty. Let's see if we can get it. But if I can get a ground ball in the first 2 pitches on somebody, like, all right, like hit a ground ball. I got one of the best infields in baseball. Like I'll take my chances and I get to go deeper in the game because of it. So for me, it's like you're playing chess. You're trying to decide when you have to, press the button and throw the nastiest thing you have, and when you can try and cruise and have an inning, an 8-pitch inning. And, when can you afford to let up guy on third, 1 out? When can you afford to let up a run? And when do you have to say no? Like that guy stops there. And you play this game, and over the course of a season, you hope that, that you're better at chess than the hitters are.
So speaking about how you are not a robot, pitchers, this is not a numbers game, and you play it on the field. Something I've noticed watching you every 5th day is that your demeanor on the mound seems very quiet in that way, except when you get a big out and then you fist pump. But what I mean by quiet is you seem very relaxed. Like the moment never really gets to you. You understand your job. You're there to compete, and you're there to just put the pitches where you want, and you'll see what happens. But there are a couple of starts throughout your career, because you aren't a robot, that you had to feel those nerves, right? Maybe your first start as a freshman for Stanford, the year after Mark Appel goes #1 overall, and you're the first freshman to start since Mike Mussina. What was it, in 1988 or something like that? Or was it the first start at the Rogers Center, right, when you're going back to Canada? Or was it game 1 of the ALDS against the Yankees? Like throughout your career, there had to be those moments where you thought to yourself, whoa, this is an enormous moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are. Listen, like anybody who tells you that they can just like go out and are unaffected by the hitter, the fans, the moment, like that, I think they're probably lying. Like there is some kind of, it's almost like waves during the season, and then there'll be moments that stick out, and you hit some of them on the head. For me, like pitching against the Padres this year, which is crazy because I have nothing but love for, they gave me my chance. Like they signed me, they brought me up to the big leagues. I have like zero ill will. I thought that like basically it's just appreciation, but for whatever reason, like it felt special that day. I wanted to be more special than usual that day, or the Rogers Center game, or ALDS. Like those are big moments, and you do want to like step up and rise to those occasions. But the one thing I always try to remind myself before those occasions is it's like, well, what am I going to do? Walk out there and suddenly throw 98 to 125 inches of pride? Like I can't drastically change the fiber of who I am, like my pitching. I can try and be even more locked in and make even better decisions. Like those are the things that I can do. I can stay like invested in every moment, and I can just be very prepared and make very good decisions. But I can't think that all of a sudden my curveball is going to be a swing and miss curveball. So it's like just knowing what you can be good at and what you can be bad at. And I don't want to for a second say that I've always been good at that. I was failing a lot in big moments in the minor leagues. I think it really held me back. It'd be like, go to the Futures game, get whacked. Go to the, whatever, like a scout game, us against the Rangers in high A, and like get whacked. Like not, trying to be too much in these moments. All-star games. Anytime that I've had to pitch 1 inning, I hate it. It's like the thing that I'm not good at. Like going out there and just trying to throw like 104 with craziness. That's not me. So I've been getting better and better about just saying like, okay, like, a start is just a collection of 1 inning outings. And if I can stay within myself for each inning and then, let it ride on the bench, whatever, be disengaged, take a look at the foul ball, watch the screens, do whatever you want to do. And then when you step back on the mound, like trying to re-engage and say like, okay, I have 3 outs to get. How am I going to get them? Like I will beg, borrow, steal. I will do whatever it takes. I'll hit a guy. I'll walk 10 guys. I don't care as long as they don't score and I get my outs. And then you walk off the field, you have a beer with the boys, and you celebrate a victory.
Sounds great. And it's something that you guys did plenty of this year. Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
I got to tell him one story because I think that start in San Diego, it was against Blake Snell, if I'm not mistaken, right? Is that the start you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a story for that one. So, you know how I'd been telling you on the money line or first fives, and it's sometimes like, for example, I'd tell you on the first 5 innings and it would be a push. Let's say you gave up 1 run in 5 innings, but your offense only scored 1 run. So I might lose that one. And there was another bet too. And it was this bet in the Padres versus Guardians game that made me think, all right, there will never be anything else except Cleveland Guardians money line when Quantrill is pitching. That's it. Because I was on a total in that game. And the total was 7.5. And you were going up against Blake Snell. And Blake Snell is an incredibly good pitcher, won a Cy Young with the Tampa Bay Rays. And at the time, your team, the Guardians, were struggling a little bit against lefties. It was an away game. But I knew you were going back to San Diego. I knew you would pitch well. I had no reservations about that. I was just thinking, I think Snell is going to pitch really well too. He's pitching in San Diego where he's done better, and your offense has been struggling against lefties. So I took the under. And in that game, the under was at 7.5. In that game, your team crushed Blake Snell. And I was thinking to myself, I'm sitting there, well, the under is screwed because the Guardians are going to get it by themselves. And the Guardians put up 7 runs, and you allowed 0.
Oh,
and I was like, this is the king. So not only, like, you could have thrown a 9-inning 1-run performance, dominated the entire time, and I would have lost. But you had my back. More importantly, you had your team's back. But in my head, you had my back more than that.
To your point, though, like, never forget, like, I went around and I thanked every single one of my position players after the season. Those boys showed up for me. Like, they really did. They hit well this year when I pitched. They played some of the best defense in baseball, if not the best. How many Gold Gloves did we win? 3 or 4? I think Shane got one too, so it might have been 4. Like, we had good balance on our team. And, like, that's what I meant by, like, if I just give my team a chance, like, I don't necessarily have to be perfect, but if I keep them in it, like, we were just like, it felt like, I'd come out down 2-1 in the 6th, and these guys would be like, no, not today, Cal, you're not losing this one. And it'd be like, whack, 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 whack. And, 4-2.
Incredible.
Oh, sweet. Like, so that worked out really good. But that's, I think, one of the coolest parts about baseball is, like, pitching can feel so individual, but, like, in the greater scheme, like, you're still part of a team sport, and those guys, like, they played their asses off this year. It was fun to be a part of that.
You guys had a great team.
Yeah, it was special. I don't think I've ever been on a team that had that kind of, like, grind to it, where it was like, it wasn't even like outwardly motivated. Like, I never heard anyone talk about, what we were supposed to do, or it was not about proving anyone wrong. It was almost like every guy wanted to prove themselves right. Like, no, like, I'm better than they think. And then, like, the combination of all those guys, like, going out and playing like that was pretty cool. And again, like, when Jose Ramirez is running down the bases as hard as he does, it's taking an extra base on a single, turning it into a double, making $150 million less than he should. I think that guy is literally a perennial MVP.
Me too.
Like, it's hard not to want to also do that. Shane's coming off injury, pitching 200 innings. Tristan decides he's a Cy Young candidate. It's like, oh my God, like, you kind of have to step up. Like, these other guys are stepping up. Like, I kind of have to step up too.
So building off of that too, you talk about some of the leaps that these guys have made, and I obviously argue that you made a huge leap this season, and a lot of that, isn't really tangible. It was the things that you learned and the nuances of pitching. Now that you go into next season, what are some of the focuses that you want to build off of this fantastic year individually, and then of course the team as well. But individually speaking here, what's something that you want to focus on to build off of such a strong campaign?
You know what? This is the cool part. This is what connects, like, trying to be a pitcher and, like, playing chess with the analytics. Like, at the end of the year, it is important to take a look at the numbers and say, like, okay, what am I, like, excelling at? What am I not doing well? One thing that hurt me this year was, like, not being able to make a guy miss when you needed a miss. Like, there are moments in games where a swing and a miss is the best thing you could get. It's even better than a weak ground ball. So, like, what can I do to try and increase those things? So, in essence, what can I do to lower my xFIP and my xERA and my xSlug and all these numbers? Like, they are relevant. Like, they do matter. That's why I'm, like, very careful about never becoming the guy that's like, oh no, just battle. Like, you want to be good at those things. If you're good at those things, you should be expected to succeed for a longer time. So like I got to the end of the season and I felt like there were times where if my breaking ball, whether it be a slider, the cutter, or a curveball, was just a little better, or if I knew when to use it in better times, I think there's room for improvement there. Like there's ways where if I could just get an extra swing and miss here and there, a punch out at a critical time, more ways to attack right-handed hitters, like that would make a really big difference for me. And it would still achieve my end goal, which is pitching as many innings as possible over the course of the season. So one thing I've looked at like this offseason, and I talked about it with Carl Willis, who is literally one of the best pitching coaches in the history of baseball, was like, what's the lowest hanging fruit for me? I'm 27 years old. I'm pretty far into my career to just, be making up pitches. So like of what I have, where do you see the most gain that could happen? And we talked about the curveball and how we thought that it did get better towards the end of the year, but it was like almost my like misunderstanding. Like I just really didn't feel like I knew when to throw it. I was just like kind of random, like no history, no past usage, kind of just guessing. So it's something Carl and I have talked a lot about. Like, what's my top end curveball look like? How can I throw it, that top end one, more often? And then like, what's the exposure level on it? Like, how many times can I throw it before, well, it's not that good. Like, there's a limit to every pitch. So that's something that, I'd love to get better at this year. I don't think that striking out 2 guys per 9 is a long-term approach to success. So finding ways to get more guys out would be good.
So I've a kind of a 2-parter question. So on Baseball Savant, your most thrown pitch is a sinker, but to me, and I think you've said this before in that Fangraphs article, that it's mostly a 2-seamer, and that you also have that 4-seamer, but you flatten out the slider in order to make it a cutter, and then you mix in that curveball. But I noticed that you made a lot of those changes moving into this year, even though you put up a 2.83 ERA. Like there didn't really seem anything wrong, but you still made those changes. And the 2-part of that question is, we spoke with Ryan Lavarnway, who I don't know if you're familiar. He's a former big league catcher. Yeah, he's been in the minor leagues. Yeah, he's the man. And he was speaking to how impactful Austin Hedges is behind the plate. Because, people might point to his offensive numbers and say, why is he catching? And then all we hear is how impactful he is behind the plate, not only framing the ball, because we know he's an excellent receiver of the ball, but what he can do for a pitching staff, kind of similar to Martin Maldonado. While Christian Vasquez for the Astros might have better overall hitting stats, they stick with Martin Maldonado. Like there is a reason that they stick with these catchers. So I'm curious if Hedges had any impact on those pitches. And I'm just curious why you decided to change up your pitch repertoire a little bit.
Yeah. Hedges is a wizard. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Look at the best defensive catchers over the last 5 years. He is elite in every category. Special catcher. I want him to. I'd love for
catch
him
forever.
One of my best friends in baseball. Special player. Special human being. The energy, effort, just work ethic on the field for hit at his position is pretty special. And it is a calming presence, knowing that your catcher is putting in that kind of work. I think he calls a great game. One of those things that I was talking about, like not knowing when to throw a curveball, like that's where Hedgie has such a huge, profound effect on pitchers. Is like, so like I'm making all these changes, like, but I'm not sure how I want to use them. Well, Hedges has caught 100, 150, 200 professional pitchers. It's bound he's run into someone who offers something like mine, or one of my pitches, and he's kind of going into the memory bank saying, well, I caught this kid in AA who had your cutter, and this is how we used it, and it worked really well. Let's try that. And then you're making these like small changes over the course of time. Why I continue to make adjustments? Well, I think that's like twofold. Number one, nothing. I don't think there's anything necessarily I throw that's so nasty that I can just throw it over and over again and expect these freak athlete big league hitters not to eventually start smashing it. And number two is like trying to be really like aggressively honest with yourself, like to what we just said, like, okay, yeah, the 2.83 was great. It was a really good season. It made a lot of improvements, but like, what did we see? Like, was there times I got lucky? Yes, there were times I got lucky. why did I get lucky? Can I do it over and over again? You know, what would help make it where that people wouldn't say that was lucky? And I think that Carl and Joe Torres and Brian Sweeney, our pitching kind of factory we've got here. Owen Dew is a guy that I've worked with. He's in Arizona with me. He's with the Guardians as well. He was AA pitching coach this year. And like identifying these things and saying, you know what, like, hey, like that sinker is good, but this is what would make it better. And, you know, in that slider, he had success with it, but like, we don't see it being something that you could just do over and over and over again. So, you know, you don't ever want to get stagnant. You just don't want to, you don't want to just rest on your laurels or, you know, this is what I did good and that's going to continue to be good. Now there are pitchers who, again, like we come back and we say the same names where sometimes I'm just sitting there salivating. I'm like, oh my God, if I had that, I would just do that. I would just do it over and over again. But know who you are. Know that if you're not getting better, someone's going to take your job. And being comfortable, kind of being uncomfortable, like making the changes, saying like knowing that 150 innings of 2.8 is not as good as 190 innings of 3.3, and 190 innings of 3.3 isn't as good as 210 of whatever. Like really being okay with that. So for me, like that's why I'll continue to change and try and get better. You know, within reason. Oh, never losing sight of, not changing the goalpost, not, you know, making the goalpost different every time you succeed, but just saying like, I'd like to make these goalposts wider. Like I'd like it make it easier to kick the field goal than I would than it is right now. So yeah, I mean, it's fun, man. That's like the art of it. That's just, you know, hitters are trying to get better. We have to too.
Speaking to, you know, you mentioned all the guys that have done really amazing things on the pitching staff side specifically. I mean, McKenzie making that leap is, like you said, looking like a Cy Young candidate down the stretch there. And, you know, Shane Bieber kind of finding himself in a different way again, too, because you talk about the injuries, velo, spin rates, you know, the induced vertical break on his fastball, all those things weren't quite there. And he still found a way to continue to get out at the highest level. You have all of these talented pitchers around you, even in the bullpen as well. You talk about the pitching coaches at your disposal and a catcher now that, you know, is one of the best in the game to work with. On the pitching side, how collaborative is the environment there? And how much are you guys, you know, bouncing stuff off of each other? You're all obviously very different types of pitchers, but like you said, you could take one thing from one guy. Can you speak to, you know, maybe that environment in the pitching staff side of things of the clubhouse of, you know, maybe how you guys work together?
Yeah. You know, one of those things we talk about, like the shared experiences, being a similar age, having like an ultimate goal, which is winning a ring, makes it really simple. Like, I'm not trying to protect secrets. I'm not trying to, you know, hide my success from my peers and my teammates. Like if the way I look at it is if I pitch my best, but I'm the fifth starter in our rotation, then like, all right, great. I'm probably going to win a ring. Like, this is wonderful. What, like, you know, if all those guys want to go face the four best on their team, I'll gladly face the fifth best. Like it's not about beating your teammates. It's about beating the other team. So for me, it's like, yeah, like there are things that Shane and Tristan and Savali, Plesac, Cody Morris, Pilkington, our entire bullpen do that I can't do. But we're still trying to get the same hitters out. We're still watching the game. We're still saying like, hey man, like it just looks different today. Like, are you feeling the load the right way? Are you, you know, is the throwing program changed? You know, like trying to chime in without ever, you know, overstepping, you know, across a line or a boundary, knowing that our pitching coaches are locked in, man. Like I'm not a coach. I'm just a peer that sees you every single day. And, you know, it's like being in a workplace environment. Like, man, you seem down the last 3 days. Like, what's up? Except for in this case, it's like, man, like it's just not spinning the same way. Like you good? Like you still feeling the same way you were feeling earlier in the year? Like blah, blah, blah. You know, stuff like that. You know, you kind of just, you're checking in, they're checking in, you're making sure that you're kind of like, you're still feeling like you're trending upwards. And, you know, over the course of time, you have to believe that these small things add up to something. Like it's impossible, I think, or maybe it's possible, but we don't have a number for it yet. But, you know, all those things over the course of time, you have to believe is some type of war. I don't know. Is it 1? Maybe not. 0.5. Who cares really? As long as it's positive, it's a good thing. So yeah, it's been good. And, you know, kind of being like just open enough to input, but never losing sight of the pillars that make you who you are. So like early in my career, I couldn't do that. It's like, I would just try and become a different pitcher every time I got advice. Now it's like, okay, well, I kind of know what I am, but I will never let that stop me from at least trying to get better. Because I don't see how like if my goal is to play 10 years in the big leagues or 15 years in the big leagues or win 10 World Series rings, then I have to get better. So like here's my foundation, but I have all these like branches that I'm willing to try and get better at. And I'm surrounded by guys who are doing all those things better than me. So why wouldn't I listen?
Dude, I'm so excited for your future. I mean, just the way you talk about baseball, so smart, so calculated, but so easygoing at the same time. Like not putting too much pressure on yourself, just throwing the right pitches and seeing what happens. And so we have some rapid fire questions to just kind of to end the podcast, but are you aware of your record at Progressive Field? Like, are you aware of the stretch that you've been on with the fact that you've thrown?
I wasn't until the end of the year, but I am glad that we finished and I'm glad that it goes into next year. I was like so tired of thinking about it. I was like, nah. I was like, let's just get through 22, and if we want to talk about it again in 23, we can.
Dude, it's unbelievable. Just to quantify that, 34 straight starts at Progressive Field since you joined the Guardians. Quantrill is 14-0 with a 2.88 ERA. So we do have these rapid fire questions that we asked Sandlin, we've asked Nestor Cortez, Justin Steele, just to kind of get your insight into inside the game. And you don't have to go full-fledged story into any of these, more just like quick rapid fire. So I'm just curious, number one, who has been your toughest at bat in Major League Baseball so far?
Oh, there's a
lot of good ones. Sandlin said Paul Goldschmidt was a really tough one for him.
I'm gonna say Mike Trout. I mean, it's too obvious. I didn't even want to say it, but like, my God, man, like that guy is special.
No, and there's a lot of guys you could have said like Judge, maybe even Jose Ramirez if you're facing him in practice, but like
Rizzo,
Mike Trout's Mike Trout. Rizzo.
Rizzo is a God, man.
He chokes up in battles, and it's got to be tough, man.
That guy's kind of putting a beating on me, man. I got to find a way to get him out.
So the next question, fortunately, you don't have to worry about this in the American League and also just any more period, but who was the best pitcher that you've had the opportunity to just see from another team, just whether you're in the dugout or just watching, period?
And you can't count any Cleveland Guardian.
No Guardians. Okay.
Putting them out, to make the question a little bit easier.
Kershaw in 1920, when I saw him with the Padres, it was just felt like, I don't know. It was just okay. It was just Kershaw doing Kershaw shit.
And so this one is definitely putting you on the spot here. Who are your top 5 starting pitchers of all time?
Randy Johnson, Roger Clemens, Kershaw, Pedro Martinez, I have to include Nolan Ryan, but I want all of their 5-year stretch. I want their the Randy Johnson, whatever it was, like the 5-year stretch where he's punching 300 a year. Like I want those stretches.
I love that.
That's fair. That's fair. I like that. I mean, Pedro,
there are some modern day guys that I really want to include, but it's like, it feels like it's doing a disservice that there's still more years to see what they're capable of.
Agree. Like guys like DeGrom.
Flirt with this list. Cole is doing special things. DeGrom, if DeGrom's healthy for a whole year, we might see something we've never seen before. Scherzer, like there are some guys. I feel like I did a disservice to today's game. It's just they're not done doing their shit yet. Yeah. They got more to show.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of guys who have more to show, who's a player on the Guardians that we should watch out for next season?
I'm going to go away from pitching because those are my guys. I don't want to single anyone out. I'm going to say Oscar Gonzalez. I think that, yes, I know that he's a very popular name now. Great year, but I think there's more there. It's like a special bat to ball. It's just like, I like him a lot. I'll just leave it at that.
I
don't want to overdo it. I just think he's going to have a really good year.
I love that. And last one from me. I saw a story that about Randy Johnson, and I like that you mentioned him. Number one, did Randy Johnson ever find you at a field alone as a kid?
It's very specific.
Yes. my dad and my mom left spring training complex when he was with the Yankees, and I was just alone. And his locker mate was the Randy Johnson, 7 foot, intimidating man. And I had to go ask him for a ride home. But realistically, he just called my dad, or my dad got home. My mom was freaking out. He jumped back and got me. But yes, Randy Johnson, legendary pitcher, legendary locker mate, legendary ride caller.
And for those curious, his dad, Paul Quantrill, was a 13-year big leaguer pitcher himself, right?
Yep. Reliever.
It's pretty awesome. So I have one last question for you, and it's a little bit off script. Why do you have a LinkedIn page? You absolutely shove. You just had a great year, and you've got a LinkedIn page, and the occupation says pitcher in the San Diego Padres organization.
I didn't even know I had a LinkedIn page. I probably made it in college. I'm going to update it. Heck, man, maybe I'm going to need a job. Yeah. I don't know. Got to keep those options open.
it says experience San Diego Padres pitcher. So you probably got to update that. You're going to be the first pitcher to have their whole transactional history on their LinkedIn page.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to put in injuries, everything. I'm going to list it all as prerequisites for the job that someone may or may not hire me in the future.
I love it. And then the last question actually we have to ask is what tattoo am I getting? It's going to be small. Or if you want to give me another out, I mean, if there's something else that you want to torture me with, that'd be great.
Why don't you just get a little expected ERA, a little XERA tat?
Yes.
Is that what I'm letting you pick it here.
I don't want this stress and pressure. I don't want to get a call from your mom. Like,
no, I'll get the calls. I'll say.
No, Peter's gonna get it.
XERA is fantastic. I was just either thinking, because I posted your face all over Twitter every 5th day to let people know that it was Cal Day. I was thinking about just getting your face on his forehead. That's a little bit too much, but I think right. Because Aram, you had hip surgery.
Yeah, I just had arthroscopic hip surgery, so I have the 3 scars, and I'm just gonna put it in the middle because that part of my body's gone to shit, so that's where I'll put my one tattoo.
You're not showing that off either. You're never gonna be a hip model, so what is
we'll
never
see.
Say never.
I just fired up my LinkedIn too.
Yeah,
my LinkedIn's up, and I've kind of put myself as looking for modeling opportunities. So but yeah, I guess we'll go XERA. I was thinking your small thing of your number.
I don't know if I can. I don't know if I could possibly tell someone to put my ugly mug on their body. So
no face. I can't have another face. I can't have a face on my body.
Just a little, something funny, like, what made you think I couldn't do it? XERA, or maybe just a little number 47, or
47. Are you going to stick with 47 though? That's the thing.
That's a good point.
47. Yeah, I'm sticking with it.
You're sticking with 47?
Unless some stud comes in and tells me I'm not allowed to wear it anymore. I guess I'd hand it off and go to the next number.
And that just made me remember something. Sorry, before we end it too. Are you going to pitch in the World Baseball Classic? Can you not speak on that yet? Or
I intend on pitching for Canada.
Let's go.
Oh yeah.
There are rules that will need to be followed. I got to make sure that I'm checking all the boxes. But
sure.
Yeah, I would love to do it. I see it as a huge honor, and I'd be in there.
Good luck.
Well, Cal, this was one of the great moments, maybe the greatest moment in Just Baseball history. Thank you for joining the Just Baseball show. This was an awesome conversation. It was amazing to get some insight into your career, how you pitch, and well, you already had a fan for life in me, but now it's definitely a fan for life. And I think you've convinced Aram. We're going to talk about it. I think
I've been in.
It only took like 10 years, man. We got you. We lured you.
Well, thanks again, man. And we'll be sure to be watching your career, and definitely for Team Canada in the World Baseball Classic. I'm sure the Toronto Blue Jays fans or Cleveland Guardians fans or just any fans of the World Baseball Classic will be happy to see you on the bump for Team Canada.
For sure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Appreciate it,
Thanks so much, man.